All right, our reporters have been covering this story since last night. Our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge, are joining us now live. Sipa, I saw you out and about today. You've been traveling to different areas that are hot spots. Where are you now? What are you seeing?
We are at the Disaster Management Center because this is where everything is being put together in terms of collating the information and statistics. That urgent meeting of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Executive Council is still underway, obviously discussing what has happened in the province. And, usually having covered such stories in the past, usually they will discuss the situation in the province, which districts or regions are heavily affected, and then they will take a decision whether to write to the national government and ask for any intervention or assistance. As we see more and more cars arriving here, people who work here at the Disaster Management Center and provincial authorities are also coming here to monitor the situation. And I'm reliably informed that one of the high-profile national ministers will be coming to KwaZulu-Natal this evening. I'm trying to check who's arriving there. If my memory or if my eyesight is not deceiving me, it should be Cooperative Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. But I'm going to ask my colleague Bonga Mkhize maybe to mount that camera so that we can see, or it appears as if the person is coming here. Actually, Zandile Kumete, former eThekwini mayor, is also here. Maybe I'm going to ask Bonga if we can just unmount the camera and go that direction. I think those are officials there. I think it's sorry ngancane boma siyacela ma Nkosazana uxolo ninjani ma niyaphila. So sorry to hijack you. We are live on air, eNCA. Very terrible news happening in KwaZulu-Natal. Disaster. You are responsible. Your department is responsible for disaster management. Are you going to be supportive a move to declare KwaZulu-Natal a disaster area?
Yes, of course we are, because it is a disaster. There is no way we can say it's not. We are going to support. That's why I'm here. And we are going to have a national meeting at 8 o'clock to look at this situation, which is really tragic. We've just been looking at what has happened, visiting some of the families. We visited a mother who our hearts are just bleeding. She was sleeping with 4 kids, and they were washed away. She tried to save them, but she could only save one. The 3 drowned and 2 have been found. 1 is still missing. It's terrible.
Has the president been briefed? Will he be visiting KwaZulu-Natal tomorrow or anytime soon?
He might be visiting. I'm not sure exactly when. Maybe tomorrow, maybe another day, but he's away.
In terms of the logistics and infrastructure and any kind of help that is needed here, this is very sad, and it will require human resources, financial resources, but most importantly to assist those who are the victims of these floods. In terms of coordinating that help, what is it that your department will be assisting the province with?
Well, for a start, it has to be classified and declared as a disaster, because that allows them to be able to use the finances. And also, already we're talking to various provinces to see what assistance they can give in the immediate. In fact, as I was coming here, the MEC of Cooperative in the Western Cape was saying they stand ready to assist if we need assistance, because there are still people who are still missing, and there are bridges that are broken. There's just a lot. But the immediate thing is to ensure that the people who are in areas that are dangerous are moved to places that are safe for now, so that if it rains again, we don't experience deaths. That's one thing that should be done, that's being done immediately. But also consoling families that have lost loved ones, but also arranging to pick up some of the bodies that are still being found. So those are the immediate things that are being done.
It should concern you as the national government that this is appearing to be very frequent and common these days in KwaZulu-Natal. 2017, 2018, 2020, we had such floods, and it's always devastating.
Yes, if you follow what the scientists are saying in terms of climate change, they are saying that the eastern part of the country is going to be wet and will have floods, whilst the western part will be dry and sometimes have droughts. So I think we now have to ensure that we gear ourselves for that eventuality, because we can see it's already happening. It's not just something that will happen in the distant future. So it's important that areas where it's going to be like this start looking at sustainability, mitigation, and so on.
Thank you very much for time. We'll see you later. That is Cooperative Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma arriving at the disaster center here in Durban, where national and provincial authorities are putting their heads together. They are putting their heads together, getting more information and statistics so that they can be able to respond properly to this disaster that has happened in KwaZulu-Natal. We do expect that more national leaders will be coming to KwaZulu-Natal to try and assess the damage and assist the province. Usually after an executive council meeting, what will happen is that there will be a formal recommendation that the province or those heavily affected areas be declared disaster areas, and then they will write to the national government. As Cooperative Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was saying, eventually the President of the Republic usually visits those affected areas. So during the course of this week, we could see President Cyril Ramaphosa visiting KwaZulu-Natal.
Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Sihle Zikalala, addressing the media earlier about what he's seen. It's so heartbreaking to hear the minister talk about a mother who's lost her kids. They were actually swept away. And these are scenes that we're seeing throughout the province, Siphamandla. You've been to several areas speaking to people whose homes are basically hanging in the balance. You spoke to a family whose granny, Gogo, actually missing, and they're still searching for her.
Indeed, we went to Claremont, where the family is still searching for their loved one. That old lady is still missing. From there, we went to Hammersdale, Mpumalanga Township, where we visited the Mjilega family, very devastated. They have lost 5 family members, where when the railway tracks were washed away by the floods, they hit their house, it collapsed, and then 5 people were inside there. All of them died. Only 4 were able to make it out alive. We are talking about 4 kids and 1 adult in that family. Very devastating. And right now, those family members were able to survive. They were saying they do not know where they are going to sleep. They need shelter, they need food, and they need all the essentials that they can get, And also, if you go to another area known as Maqongo, another family is still, trying to deal with the aftershocks or the after effects of these devastating floods, because they have also lost 5 family members. So across the province, not only in eThekwini, yes, eThekwini is the provincial hub in terms of the economy, but if you go to Ladysmith, that area, flooding there is very common and frequent. And I can tell you, if you go to the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal, Ugu district, you go to Mkungundlovu, KwaZulu-Natal Midlands, all those districts and regions are heavily affected by these floods. And I guess as time goes by, maybe days from now, we'll start to get the real picture of the impact. And it's not looking good in terms of the death toll and the human lives that have been lost.
Yeah, and just talk to us through the rescue efforts that we're seeing across the province. The minister telling you that it's continuing tonight and that emergency services and disaster management teams are widespread across the province, trying to actually help those in need, because communities have literally been cut off today.
Indeed, many communities are struggling to access water, electricity. Since last night, people have been disconnected. Even, networks in terms of cell phones. One of the mobile network operators in South Africa saying they are struggling with their signal and coverage. And you go across eThekwini here in KwaZulu-Natal, Bongamkize was just getting visuals of people there, trying to clean. I'm trying to check which official will emerge out of this vehicle that is this side. I'm not sure. Maybe it's one of the councillors or one of the people who is attending this meeting that is taking place here at the Disaster Management Center, but more and more officials are arriving. Yes, so mop-up operations and clean-up operations are underway across KwaZulu-Natal, or this is Councillor Nkosazana Dlamini of eThekwini municipality, as we know that eThekwini is the heavily affected area. So you go across Durban, there are mop-up operations because many roads and bridges are underwater. Others have been damaged and wiped away or swept away. So it will continue to be a very difficult period for those who are responsible for cleaning up. And they are stretched in terms of human resources and capacity because they don't have enough human resources and capacity to reach all the areas that have been affected. And in other areas, it's difficult to get across because the roads have just been wiped away. So it's really difficult just to get across so that you can start helping people. Hence, when we visited Claremont earlier on, we saw community members helping themselves in a rescue operation, or should I say trying to look for the missing elderly woman, because they were saying they cannot wait for authorities and those who will come and try that search and rescue operation, because resources will never be enough to do that. So hence it is important to have this province declared a disaster area so that you can have more resources coming from the national government to assist at least with search and rescue and mop-up operations.
And talk to me about what people are saying in terms of how the provincial government has actually handled the situation. I see some residents are concerned that the government there did not do the proper maintenance work on roads and stormwater drains, because as you asked the minister, this happens over and over again. So why have they not dealt with this issue of drains and drainage systems?
I asked the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, and the eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda, that question to say this is not new. It has happened before on a number of occasions. There were concerns about the infrastructure and the drainage system, particularly in and around eThekwini. Well, Siphamandla saying it will be unfair to blame the infrastructure and the drainage system alone, because there are other factors that are contributing to this, including human behavior, saying some of the drainage systems, they get blocked because people are littering, but trying really to avoid the gist of the situation. Yes, no one can prevent this from happening, but at least if you've got a properly functioning infrastructure that is able to deal with a disaster of this nature, you can actually minimize the impact and mitigate around the impact. And the issue of the drainage system here in eThekwini has been discussed for a very long time. There have been debates about that, but it appears as if not much of lessons have been learned from previous disasters, because you still have the very same thing happening over and over again, and it appears that very little work has been done in terms of addressing that. Perhaps let's take a listen to what Siphamandla said earlier on when he was giving me the latest information in terms of the update about the people that have lost their lives during this tragedy.
The number of people who have lost their life right now stands at 45. All of those people are in one district, and that is eThekwini Metro. But more than that, we've suffered damage, huge damage in terms of infrastructure, where a lot of houses were damaged. In eThekwini alone, more than 2,000 RDP houses were left damaged, and more than 4,000 informal settlements or shacks were also damaged. We've suffered huge damage in terms of infrastructure such as houses, roads and bridges. We will continue as government to support all affected communities. The mostly affected communities are in eThekwini, Ugu, Ilembe, and Umgungundlovu district.
All right, Siphamandla Goge, our senior reporter, is at the Disaster Management Center in KwaZulu-Natal, in Durban in particular. That meeting is currently underway. The Cooperative Governance Minister, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, confirming to him a short while ago that KwaZulu-Natal will be declared a disaster area. So, Sally, of course, that puts things in motion for the province to actually get more funding to deal with the situation.
Absolutely crucial, but I think, as Sipa was saying later on, big questions have to be asked about whether more could have been done to prevent the scale of this, because it does seem there are questions about drainage, where houses are allowed to be built. And I'm thinking not only of informal settlements, that those people must be given proper areas to settle, but also the very fancy houses we see in the rich areas. Some of them look like they are actually perhaps in dangerous areas, and I think that a lot of question around planning has to be asked. But of course the main concern now is the humanitarian situation, and really heartbreaking stories the minister was sharing, and very clear now, sadly, that the death toll is indeed likely to sharply rise.